God is an experience, not a belief or a theory. God is an actual experience that I have had, many other people have had, and that you can have. And that's even important for you theists to understand, because the problem with you theists is that you believe in God so much that you confuse your image of God for God itself. And that actually becomes your greatest obstacle to actually understanding what God is. Now, of course, the very first objection we got to answer here is that sometimes people even think that they're God. So Leo, how can you trust your personal experience? What does this really show? This isn't proof. I need solid, concrete proof. I want a double-blind, placebo-controlled study that shows me that there's a God, if there is such a thing. Because, Leo, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. So prove to me, provide to me the tangible evidence, and then maybe I'll agree with you about the existence of God. Such the rationalist and the atheist thinks. And the rationalist actually believes that this is a valid way to think about this problem. Here's the reality of the matter. When you say this objection, you really demonstrate that you don't know and you haven't really thought carefully about what experience is, or what proof is, or even how science works, or how knowledge works. Because in this objection, you're just assuming that proof is a given, and that proof is just an easy thing. It's like you just go and find proof. You find proof for God in the way that you might find proof for some murder. Like you find a knife with blood on it, you do some DNA testing, and then boom, there you go, you've proved it. And in the same way, we can prove God. But that's not how it works. Because when we're talking about God, we're talking about the most fundamental thing ever. We're talking about the origin of existence itself. So as you can clearly see, proof requires that first you have existence. Science and rationality depend on certain fundamental things that need to be in place before they work. See? So what you're not realizing is that proof is actually a second order phenomenon. We have to build up to proof. Proof is not something we just take for granted. After all, what qualifies as proof? Whose standards for proof are we going to use to prove existence exactly? Your standards, my standards, our community standards, our culture's standards? You're taking all of this completely for granted. Consider that truth or being is prior to proof, because proof itself requires being in order to get itself off the ground. So here's a little analogy for you. It's as though we have Lego building blocks, and we're going to use these to build a castle. Proof is a second order phenomena in the sense that out of these bricks, we can build a castle. The castle is made out of the little bricks. So it's really an emergent second order, right? You can't have a castle without bricks, but you can have bricks without a castle. You see that? You see how the castle depends on the bricks to exist first? Well, that's how proof works. So in a sense, when you're telling me that you need proof for God, the critical mistake you're making, it's as though you're asking me to formulate a brick in the shape of a castle. You see, you've put the cart before the horse. You've misunderstood what depends on what, because you're taking the castle as the primary and the brick as the secondary. It's sort of like you're asking me to prove the existence of bricks to you, because all you've ever experienced are castles. You see the problem there? You've got it backwards. It doesn't work like that. And that proof is always a weaker notion than truth. The domain of truth is everything, and the domain of proof is a subdomain of truth, because proof itself is part of truth, but not the entirety of it. Another way to explain this to you is prove to me that you exist. How would you do that? You see, the problem with you rationalist types is that you ignore your own direct experiences and the necessity of your own existence and the fact that you are intimately in the world. You're not standing outside of it as some observer outside the universe looking in. You're intimately in the universe. So it's actually not possible to prove that you exist, because existence is more fundamental than proof. The only reason you think you exist is because you feel that you exist, and that happens through personal experience. Or, for example, try to prove that colors exist to a blind person. Think about that. Think about it for a minute, and what you'll realize is that it's not possible, right? So proof is a very complex notion that requires a lot of stuff to build it up. It's made of various building blocks, which themselves cannot be proven.